And I started looking at this, and I'm like, my gosh, if I actually transfer into this group, I'm going to be the worst rated guy on here. Because there's no way that I'm going to be able to work those kind of hours and participate in meetings at 7 p.m. at night, because that's not where my priorities lie. So I ultimately decided not to transfer into the group. Smart me. Because I just saw that there was going to be no way that I was going to be able to work in that group, be successful, and still be able to leave by 5 in the morning, or 5 in the morning, whoops. That was a Freudian slip. 5 p.m. and be successful. Because I would have always been the guy that they were having these meetings and I wasn't there. And for the rest of the group, that would have been a lack of dedication issue for them. So I would have been the worst performer. I've lived with this peer pressure thing throughout my entire career. And I could bet that some of you in here have done the same thing, where you feel like if somebody else is working really hard, especially in an environment where jobs might be a little bit scarce, okay, that there's got to be this, well, somebody else is working hard, I've got to work hard as well. You can't fall into that trap, okay? And that's where you go back to point 3, which is measuring success and results and not hours worked. 3 and 4 go very closely together, because if you start playing the peer pressure game, now you're starting to do work based on hours, and you're not doing work based on results. And I mean, there's been study after study that shows that your productivity drops off after 40 and 50 hours per week, and chances are you won't get any more done in 60 than you would in 50 anyways. So it's really important to keep that focus and not allow for others to define what your work life looks like for you. So number 5, and this has probably been one of the tougher ones for me. And this is about talking and praying with your spouse about your dreams, aspirations, and problems. So I'm a very proud man, and a lot of times I viewed, particularly earlier in my married life, where if I talked to my wife about my dreams and my problems and everything like that, that was somehow a sign of weakness. And I didn't want to burden her with problems that I was having. And I didn't want to come home and complain about things, because she was working with the kids and she had a very busy life herself. So I would try to protect her from some of those things. And then we were talking and my wife was like, well, why don't you talk to me about this stuff? I'm like, you want me to talk to you about this stuff? She's like, yes. I want to know what your problems are. I want to know what your aspirations are. I want to know your dreams. And I'm like, well, okay, sweetheart. And I didn't do very well with that. And it's only been really in the last 5 years that I've been more vocal about that. And it kind of coincides with me starting my own business and kind of working on my own, where I'll do a lot more of sharing with her about kind of where I want to go with the business, and talking with her about her business that she's in right now, as she started a wardrobe consulting business 2 years ago. And it's something that she's very excited and passionate about. So we kind of do this with each other. And I found that it's just very freeing for me to be able to talk with my wife about some of these things, and to be able to pray with her about them. She knows if there's some tough struggles that I'm having with something, or if I'm dealing with a difficult client or one of those things. And it's very comforting. My wife and I pray every night before we go to sleep, and we alternate who prays. So when we get in bed, it's kind of like, well, is it your turn or my turn? And it's like, well, you fell asleep early last night, so you forgot to pray, so it's now your turn. I'm like, okay, fine. So, but just being able to do that and being able to pray with your wife every night, and to be able to share those problems with her. My guess would be is that she wouldn't see that as an additional burden on her. That she would see that as, my gosh, my husband's opening up more to me. And he's actually talking with me about some of these things that are really difficult. And he's talking with me about some of the aspirations and some of the dreams that he's got. Because I can guarantee you, she wants to be part of that stuff. So make sure you're talking with your wife about your dreams, your aspirations, your issues. Make sure you're praying over them. And again, I can't overstress the importance of praying. My wife and I pray every night. At dinner time, we pray and we rotate who prays. at dinner, and Trevor's always the one who knows who prayed last. So he'll say, he'll kind of, we all turn to him and wait for him to point at one of us. It's like, okay, who prays? And then he's like, okay, great. And he's always right, because that's what he does. But it's important to have that prayer time. And it's important to be able to openly and freely share some of the things that you're struggling through, some of the things that you're excited about, where your passions are. And then make your wife part of those. Don't compartmentalize what your work life is from what your personal life is, from what your relationship is with your wife, and from what your spiritual life is. Those things all need to work together, because if they don't work together, then you have that contention. You have that push and pull, and that's where the guilt starts coming in, and that's exactly where Satan wants you. He wants you to feel that guilt. He wants you to feel that you're so busy because it takes you out of the game. Think about it from that perspective. He wants you busy, because being busy is like being under Satan's yoke. That's where he wants you, and that's the thing that we have to protect. So talk with your wife about that stuff. Talk with if you've got a mentor, or if you've got an accountability partner, make sure you're talking through those things. Those are really important. Now whoops. Can you put me on presentation again? I hit the wrong button, sorry. So my challenge back to you is, how many of these things resonate with you? Maybe there's only one. Maybe there's all five. I can certainly tell you at some point in my life, all five of those things resonated with me. And those were five things that if I had to grade myself on an A through F scale, I got a G, because I was horrible. And I can look at that list now, and I don't know that I can give myself an A on all those things. But those are things that I have to keep in the forefront. I have to continue to remind myself of the things that are important and where I need to be focusing. And this will be a constant struggle with you. If you ever get to the point where you feel like you've got this completely licked, pull this list out again, because you probably don't. So, as I mentioned, on this table, I have these assessments, and I think we're supposed to end about 9, so I'm probably about 10 minutes over here. So, here's what I suggest you do. Take this home. And if you're daring enough, make a copy and give it to your wife. And then go through it together, where you grade yourself, and then you grade your spouse, and then you have your spouse grade her and grade you, and then be prepared for a good long talk. Because the thing that I will guarantee you'll find with at least one of these is you may think you're doing great at it, and she'll say otherwise. Woohoo! That'll be fun. I'm going to watch for fireworks around here this afternoon. I've had these discussions countless times with my wife. And I think it's important that you do the same. Right? And if you're not married, if you're one of the younger folks in here, or if your spouse isn't around, do it on your own. Or find some person, maybe an accountability partner or a friend or some trusted advisor that you can do this with. And if you have a perception of yourself which is different from the perception of somebody else, ask about it. So why do you think that maybe I have a difficult time establishing priorities? Or why do you think my calendar is a train wreck? And I always look like I'm 10 minutes late, and I'm flying into rooms, and there's papers behind me, and I look like there's this big, the Roadrunner with that big dust ball behind you, because you're always running around and trying to catch yourself. Or with your wife. Why don't you talk and pray about your aspirations, dreams, and problems? Have that discussion. I think it's really good and healthy, and you may not hear what you want to hear, but guys, sometimes we need that.
Praise you, Lord, with all of my heart. I want to praise you, Lord.